Happy Halloween, dreamers. I am the Tragic Spectre, and welcome to Graveyard Narrative. To celebrate this fantastic yet horrifying holiday, I will talk about a genre that has been very popular as of late, Mascot horror. From passionate works of art to blatant cash grabs, Mascot horror has taken many forms over the past few years. Today, I will talk about the highlights and lowlights this genre has to offer. Without further ado, let us commence. Mascot horror at its core is twisting childhood whimsy into something much more terrifying. And of course the first one we'll discuss today will be the one that started it all, Five Nights at Freddy's. What started out as a man's last attempt at making a video game has turned into an enterprise with games, books, movies, and toys. The mascot part of this game series is animatronics, specifically child entertainment animatronics that you can find in places like Chuck E. Cheese. Animatronics in real life are already creepy, but with the addition of being trapped in a facility full of hostile ones alone at night can make quite a dreadful experience. The use of something familiar twisted into something creepy, along with this vast story, makes Five Nights at Freddy's quite memorable. Even though the series had its ups and downs, Five Nights at Freddy's is still one of the biggest franchises out there. Now it's time to discuss a series that uses twisted familiarity along with corporate greed, Bendy and the Ink Machine. The Bendy games are about a machine that can bring drawings to life, but it can also drag people into its inky world. The theme of this game is rubber hose animation that can be found in early 20th century, but can also be a reflection of corporations and how they treat their employees. Joey Drew Studios had hazardous working environments, working employees long hours and firing them on a whim, but that's just the icing on the cake compared to what they did with the Ink Machine. The Ink Machine was used to bring drawings to life, using human souls. People lost their lives just for the business to make money. If that's not an allegory, I don't know what is. That's why I like Bendy Ink Machine. It twists familiarity, but also reflects the dark side of business. Even though Bendy Ink Machine is nowhere as popular as Five Nights at Freddy's, it still has a cult following to this day. That can't be said about every mascot horror game out there. Some fall between the cracks, like the one-off game Tattletail. Tattletail is a toy that is like a Furby, but is more demanding than a Tamagotchi. Unlike the prior game, the titular character is not the enemy of this game, but rather its mother. Tattletail is a one-and-done game, with the main antagonist Mama Tattletail being banished at the end of the game. But that's not a bad thing. Not every game needs sequels. Sometimes a story just needs to be an isolated story with no follow-ups. And I think Tattletail is a great example of this. It doesn't really have any more avenues to explore. Quite a few mascot horror games are not fully released yet, making it hard to properly critique it, with future chapters potentially changing the perception of the game. So I'll review these games as they are right now, starting with Poppy Playtime. The story is about a former employee at Playtime Co. who goes back to the abandoned factory where all his co-workers disappeared one day. Throughout the factory, you are attacked by giant carnivorous toys who were created during the time when this factory was still active. It was revealed that these toys were once children that were turned into these monstrosities by Playtime Co. to use them as slave labor. Eventually, the toys escaped and killed everyone in the facility, including the factory workers who had nothing to do with these experiments. What I like about the story is that neither side can be considered innocent. Playtime Co. robbed these children of their humanity, while the toys killed innocent factory workers who were completely oblivious to these illegal experimentations. Unfortunately, with the popularity of Poppy Playtime, it has become a victim of something that has plagued YouTube for quite a while: content farms. Content farms on YouTube are channels that massively upload low-quality videos, mainly using IPs that are popular at the time. It's disappointing that these content farms abuses these indie IPs for a quick buck, but as long as YouTube's making money off of them, they won't do anything about it. Another indie horror game that is used a lot in content farms is a series of fluctuating quality, Garten of Banban. In this game, you play as a parent looking for your child in a seemingly deserted kindergarten with a giant facility underneath. While exploring, you are attacked by the facility's mascots that kinda look like Play-Doh. My first complaint about the game is that the story feels like it's all over the place rather than being properly structured. The story went from trying to find your child to combating naughty ones to figuring out that Banban's not the main mascot, it's Flumbo. The story is just all over the place. My second complaint is that there doesn't seem to be a reason why these things exist in the first place. FNAF animatronics were hostile because they were possessed by murder victims. The ink creations in Bendy were made to try to save a business from going under, and the toys in Poppy Playtime were made for cheap labor. But with Garten of Banban, there doesn't seem to be a really good reason for the creatures and the facility to properly exist. Hopefully a later installment in this series will help explain the convoluted story that is going on. Now it's time for a horror game that deceived everyone in its first installment, Amanda the Adventurer. Amanda the Adventurer is about an educational children's program of the same name, featuring Amanda the Adventurer and her companion Wooly. On the surface, Amanda the Adventurer seems like any normal kids show, but underneath is something much more demonic and life-threatening. The deception I talked about earlier refers to the dynamic between Amanda the Adventurer and Wooly. In the first game, it was believed that Wooly was a victim and Amanda was a perpetrator. She even had a demonic form outside in the real world. In the second game, Wooly comes off as a manipulator trying to keep the show on its course, while Amanda seems like an unwilling participant who wants out. And in the secret ending, it is revealed that Wooly also has a demonic form outside that seems more dangerous than Amanda's. The developer of the game did just a great job making a plot twist that no one saw coming. What was once believed to be a demonic child and an innocent lamb turned out to be a scared child and a wolf in sheep's clothing. Hopefully in another installment we'll be able to save Amanda and the others who are trapped in the tapes. Only a handful of these Mascot horror games are actually scary. A lot of them are toned down for a younger audience, to the point where the horror label seems very misleading. A Mascot horror game that matches the description would definitely be My Friendly Neighborhood. My Friendly Neighborhood is about an abandoned show that is similar to Sesame Street. The game starts off with the sentient puppets restarting the show and broadcasting it over other TV shows. You play as a repairman named Gordon who is tasked with disabling a satellite, thus ending the broadcast, but is encountered by not-so-friendly opposition. My biggest issue with this game is it's not really horrifying. It can be unsettling at times, but it's not really scary. For me, the game is more heartwarming than scary, because you can befriend and help some of the puppets you encounter. The only part of the game that can be considered terrifying is the unfriendly neighborhood, but that sequence is kind of too short to leave a lasting impact. Don't get me wrong, it's a great game, but this is not a very good horror game. If My Friendly Neighborhood ever gets a sequel, I would suggest making it into more of a puzzle adventure than a horror game. Like any other series, Mascot horror games need hype to keep going. Strike while the iron is hot, as they say. But what happens to a game when the flame nearly dies out? A good example of that would be Baldi's Basics. Baldi's Basic is a Mascot horror take on educational video games. Baldi's Basics is fairly normal at the beginning, that is until you get a question wrong, which Baldi then chases you across the school. All you need to do to beat the game is collect 7 notebooks and then leave the schoolhouse before Baldi catches you. The game was going strong and the developer had plans to make a definitive edition of the game, which people are excited about, but then the developer went radio silent. By the time Baldi's Basics Plus released for early access, most of the hype has died off, leaving only a handful of dedicated fans to play the game. To remain relevant, especially on the internet where things change very quickly, you need to keep your fans interested in your work while it's being developed. That's why many developers have social medias, so they can engage with their fans while they're working on their latest projects. I hope Baldi's Basics makes a comeback and becomes something truly special when it's finished being developed. The last game I want to talk about is one that I'm most looking forward to, and is the one that's currently being played, Indigo Park. In Indigo Park, you play as Ed, an urban explorer as he explores the ruins of an abandoned amusement park of the same name. While exploring, Ed meets Rambly, an artificial intelligence based on the mascot of the theme park, whose sole mission is to keep the park goers entertained. While Rambly guides Ed through the dilapidated park, he is stalked by a living version of another mascot, Molly Macaw. Turns out the park was experimenting on animals to make living versions of their mascots. As per tradition in these Mascot horror games, the mascots eventually escaped and caused havoc throughout the entire park. Eventually, Rambly came clean, revealing that he knew about the other mascots, but didn't say anything because he wanted to make sure that Ed had a great time, as per his programming. At the end of the chapter, Ed agreed to help Rambly restore the park to its former glory, leading into the next chapter that's coming soon. I am looking forward to see what happens next with Indigo Park. It shows a lot of promise. Obviously, rambling is the best part of the game, with his cute and funny dialogue. Hopefully it doesn't betray us at the end of the game. The best advice I could give you for a Mascot horror game is pick something from your childhood and think of a way to twist it into a nightmare. For example, Lego was a big part of my childhood, so I would probably make a Mascot horror game about a disassembled toy that takes apart humans. And remember that inspiration isn't a bad thing, so just make sure to use your own ideas to make it your own. Have fun and twist dreams into nightmares. Thank you for watching. If you have any suggestions or complaints, comment below. I'm sure we'll meet again in the graveyard.